Clayoquot Action has a program called CSI, Clayoquot Salmon Investigation. So we get out in the Sound on a regular basis to expose the dirty secrets of this industry. Recently, we've been seeing schools of herring outside of the fish farms, just little juvenile herring. And so we figured there's probably a lot more than we're seeing here. What we need to do is get underwater. And so we asked a diver friend if he would like to come up and film these herring underwater. He was more than happy to do that. And so what we're seeing on these images is just huge schools of tiny juvenile herring. They're just congregating right outside the fish farm. We also saw them inside the fish farm, and we also saw them transiting between the inside and the outside of the fish farm. The little pellets that the farmed fish are fed are very rich in fats. And so what we're seeing is they do stick around the farms, and I suspect they may never leave. These little herring are becoming addicted. Why would they go anywhere else when there's rich food right there available for them?
In front of Hopitsit and Clayoquot territory, we have not seen as much herring anymore. And I think that a lot of that is attributed to the sea lice infested, virus spreading, polluting salmon farming is one of the worst things that ever happened in these waters.
It's difficult to think of one species that's more important within the marine ecosystem here in British Columbia. Herring are a keystone species, and just about every major predator in the marine environment either directly eats herring or eats something that eats herring. I still remember the first time I came to BC and I saw a herring spawning event, and it blew my mind. It's the kind of thing that you just can't imagine until you're there, and the water just turns milky white, and every creature you can imagine has congregated in this area. You see unbelievable densities of marine birds, marine mammals, everything's showing up to feed on the roe and on the adult herring, and it's just an explosion of life like nothing else. It's my favorite time of the year, and it's probably one of the most spectacular natural phenomena that I think I've ever witnessed as a biologist or just as a person. It's like nothing else to see that much life in one place at one time. It's incredible. And the reality is there are still herring spawning all up and down the BC coast, but that doesn't really tell the story of what we're seeing at a larger scale, where the biomass is dropping, the spawn mass is dropping, and the populations are declining.
These salmon farming companies, they're free riders. They like to save money. They have free sewage disposal. They don't have to flush. It goes right into the ocean. They're using lights at night to grow their fish faster, which attract other fish. We looked at the website of a manufacturer, and they actually boast that you can reduce your feed cost by attracting wild fish into your aquaculture operation. This is just a terrible practice that these companies are allowed to cash in and save money by allowing their farm fish to consume wild fish that shouldn't even be in those pens. Last year, we pulled up to a fish farm where they were treating for sea lice with this big power washing barge. They call it a hydrolyser. And we started to see little dead herring bobbing up all around, tiny little fish with their eyeballs blown out. And we realized that what had happened was when they sucked the farm fish out of the pens, any of the herring must have been in there with the salmon, and they got sucked out with the salmon and run through the power washer. But this power washer is for fairly large or larger salmon. It's not for tiny little herring. And so they are just not built to take that kind of a pressure, and they were being killed by the hydrolyser, hundreds of them. It was really sad, I just broke down and cried. I could not believe what I was seeing, and it took me a minute to kind of get a grip and realize this is happening. These herring are being killed by the hydrolyser, and now I have to get to work and I have to document this so people know that this is happening.
When we have evidence that open net salmon farming can have certain impacts on other species within the environment, it's only logical to assume that they might have impacts on herring as well. If we want to appreciate those impacts and make informed, responsible decisions, I think we need to learn a lot more about the systems that we might potentially be modifying or affecting.
we have not had any spawn for a long, long time. And so as a result, a lot of the people are not able to go and do the harvesting of herring eggs or even to catch herrings. So that has had a big negative impact on the communities, And so there's still hope for them, especially if we get these rotten farms out of these waters. There's hope for them. But if we cannot get these farms out, we're kissing these fish to extinction.